Laura, the minutes look good to me, but I was not there, so I'll be abstaining from voting on the minutes.
Melinda, if Reed abstains, we just need 4 members to be here, correct?
Yeah, I think you need 4 members of the commission to approve the minutes. So you can postpone approval until next time if you want.
Okay, let's do that. And Melinda, I should have opened right away with congratulations on your new position in the planning office.
Thank
Yes,
you.
congratulations.
Yeah, that's exciting.
Thank you.
Not as exciting for us, though.
Yeah, I know.
In fact, it's kind of sad, but
It is.
Well, thanks.
Yeah, you're irreplaceable, Melinda, so we'll just,
we'll do our best.
Well, that's very kind, but I know that the next person that comes in will do. I'm sure we'll find somebody who's great. So
I'm sure we'll try not to compare them to you.
Yeah.
All right.
Anyway, so
Okay, so let's start with the Summerfield residential subdivision. And let's see, is Kim here yet?
she's not here. Even if you don't have a quorum, you can review this and we'll still pass along your recommendations to the DRB.
Okay, Kim was here last time too, so
Mhm.
yeah, I think so. I think she was. Okay, all right, so let's go ahead and start with that. Thank you.
Sure. So the applicants are here and can provide an overview of the project if you wish. And then we can look at the findings and recommendations.
Is that my cue, Melinda?
Yeah, somebody on your end.
Okay.
Hi, it's Ken Bellavo. I'm here representing the applicants. You also see Brian Courier, and I believe he's with Mike Senesac. No, he's with Chris Senesac.
Chris.
So Chris, of course, is actually the applicant. Brian is the engineer. So this project, I believe, has been in front of the commission a few times. It started back with its first round of pre-application a couple of years ago now. It's been in front of the town for growth management 2 times now. And this is the occasion when we are applying for the first, or should I say the discretionary permit, which is the actual permit for the first phase of development of this project. And this is the location. It's currently the Catamount Country Club. The project had gone by that name initially. We're now going by the name of what it will be called as part of its development, which is Summerfield. The first phase of development is, so that map has west pointing to the top of the page. So the first phase of development would include the main road, which will be called Carbonis Drive, which would extend basically from the right-hand side of your screen there. That's Mountain View Road, and then would connect all the way down to Raven Circle right there on the left-hand side. So that's really the course of that road would be there along the top side or the west side of the site. All the construction would come in from Mountain View Road, with the exception of whatever work that might need to be done to make the road connection down at Raven Circle, the water and sewer line, et cetera. but all the, the construction activity per se, the trucks, et cetera, all that stuff would come in from Mountain View Drive. In terms of, natural resources that are identified as needing to be conserved in the Williston regs, this property is largely devoid of them, quite frankly. It's not that there aren't any, there are some wetlands present on the site, but compared to a lot of the projects that you would see, especially out in the ag rural zoning district, where you would have steep slopes, as well as, perhaps extensive swampy areas, et cetera. This site, not so much. It's largely areas that are really around the fringe areas, what I would call the fringe areas here, where you see them. And, that does include some class 2 wetlands and their associated buffers. One of the things that I would emphasize about this project is that this project is attempting to do something that nobody else has really ever done in Williston, which is to, in the residential zoning district, develop a project that includes a very, very large portion of affordable housing units that enables the project to qualify for a density bonus. So you see a level of density that's not what you typically would see in this particular zoning district. But most developments in the residential zoning district also are completely market rate developments. So that's one of the things that makes this project very, very different. So that's kind of an overview of it. I think we would like to be able to answer any questions the commission has, and then address any specific areas where there may be a pinch point or some friction between where the Conservation Commission has particular concerns and where the project is in its proposed state at present.
All right. Thank you very much, Ken. Melinda, can we go to the findings?
I should
Ken-
have changed that finding number 1 because we did get, we got a revised site plan that shows 7+ acres of open space. So I did revise it in the narrative, but not in this finding. So I do need to do that.
Okay, thank you very much. Could you just show us that open space on the plan?
Sure. So it's this yellow hatched area right here and down here. It does include the parking and the community building and the pool and the stormwater pond here. And then there's also some shown down. It's a little bit hard to see, but I think
Yeah,
it
it
goes
is. It's
down here.
really hard to see.
Yeah.
Melinda, is that normal to include buildings and stormwater and all that stuff in open space, including pools and
Yeah,
parking lots?
I did make a recommendation that that area be excluded from the open space. Let's see. Yeah, number 1 shouldn't include developed community facilities. Because although they may be common community facilities, they're not really considered open space for conservation purposes.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I think that was the mix there, which is just, it's all, the open space, of course, is going to be part of commonly owned area by all the residents in the development, as well as the community facilities. But, in terms of, labeling it as open space proper, we don't have a problem with that. We are, of course, required to build those facilities because those were all things that were pledged by us when we went through growth management, part of the whole, just all of the things that the town pulls for and incentivizes under the growth management system that included all those facilities.
Thank you. And I'm just curious. So for the open space, it's a strip. Can that be mowed, or is that, or how can that be treated? The open space that's there?
Well, so, you know, a couple of things. On the sort of the top part or the west side, there's that wide open space area. So those, with the exception of the one property on the far right, those aren't really individual lots per se. They're essentially, there's a footprint lots. So, you know, if you buy one of those units, you know, basically what do you own? You own your building or you're part of your building. You don't actually have a yard per se. And the other, so I, you know, unlike sort of in a conventional subdivision, you buy a lot and you have some understanding, here's my property lines. I go out and buy a nice lawnmower and, you know, go at it. Any of the people that own those units, they're not going to be doing any lawn work. But more importantly is the periphery of the site is going to be developed with a type 2 landscape buffer. So it's not really going to be developed as lawn per se. It's going to be developed, you know, or I should say developed, but planted with a mix of trees and shrubs, et cetera. So, you know, that's essentially it. And it should be emphasized that especially there on the east side of the property, which would be to the bottom of the screen, which is really where the wetlands are, is there's not any expectation that anybody's going to be doing any mowing in there because it's not going to be planted as lawn. So in addition to my comments before about what ownership rights people would have, it wouldn't necessarily be planted as lawn per se. You know, the one exception would be the lot, which would be on the north side, would be on the south, on the, that's the east side of the road. On the north side, got me confused, Melinda, because you got the thing.
Right,
Side.
are you talking about this one?
Yeah, the first one on the left
Right.
as you enter from
So,
Mountain View.
you know, so there's part of the buffer, which would be on the property. And, you know, in that particular case, we would demarcate the edge of the, of where the buffer would be with, whether it was with large boulders. Large boulders, in our experience, tend to be the most permanent. You know, fences fall into disrepair eventually. Trees can be cut down. I know you hate to think of that, but it does happen. I can think of a few examples where that's happened. Large boulders work really well. And so we would be prepared to do that to make sure that we don't have an overambitious property owner with a, you know, a brand new lawnmower who just wants to go to town. And I think that's most likely the concern of the board.
Gary has his hand up, Laura.
Thanks.
So Ken,
Go ahead.
and so my end, I'm looking at the same map you are, obviously. So that swath in the, I guess it'd be the east side on the bottom of the map, with the hatches, the red swath with hatches through it. Am I reading that right? That that's a supplemental planting area? Or that big swath that's kind of through the wetland on the bottom of the map?
Yeah, the 50-foot wide strip.
What
That's
is
the
that swath?
That's the wetland buffer.
No, but it's more than that. What is the kind of wide thing with the red hatches through it? Right near where the cursor is right now.
Brian, can you?
Yep, so The red hatching area denotes a 50-foot buffer from the proposed property line.
I'm gonna,
The type of landscaping buffer there
Okay.
is a 50-foot buffer, but because the wetlands reach out further than the 50 feet, our plantings are outside of that 50-foot buffer, but it just denotes the type of landscaping buffer and the required setback.
Okay, so there'll be no, I just want to be sure there's no planting within the wetland or within the wetland buffer, which is,
That's correct. It's just for
Okay.
pictorial accounting purposes for us.
and even on the west side, that's a class 3 wetlands in a lot of those areas. Is that, I don't know, do we want to worry about that at all in terms of the planting buffer that's going in on the west side, on the top of the map?
So there's a few very minor class 3s kind of sporadically spaced around the golf course. The southwest corner is denoted class 2 with associated buffer, and it's being planted in the same fashion as the eastern side.
So only at the edge of the buffer, right?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
You know, one thing that isn't addressed in the staff report that we would raise, and I don't know if the commission wants to, you know, weigh in on this, but so in the plan, Melinda, if you could pull the plan back up. So if you look coming off of Carbonis Drive and leading towards the right of way of the Cirque Highway, there's a pedestrian access point. Yeah, right
I
there.
saw that.
Right. So the reason why that's there is because the staff told us to put it there. So we put it there, and, you know, so we're all in favor of, you know, people having access to the right of way of the Cirque. And I understand from, you know, my previous work with the commission that, you know, ideally the town would like to see that perhaps be a linear park or something like that. You know, if the stars align eventually, and, you know, VTrans can find a way to do that. But there is some pushback on that location from folks who live over in Brennan Woods. And an alternative location that has been identified is down there on that southwestern corner where there are some wetlands. And that's been identified as an alternative location for that path. So, you know, I would bring it up because this is something that comes up periodically, and it's come up and, you know, goes back many years with the commission, where the commission wants to get some sort of pedestrian access point, and then it ends up getting mapped out, going through an area that's protected. It's some kind of a swampy area. And then it becomes difficult, if not impossible, logistically to locate the desired pedestrian facility. So I would simply point out that this is what has been proposed both by John Hemmelgarn, who lives over in Brennan Woods, and the staff has included that commentary in its staff report. So you know, our only concern is we would not want the project to be somehow held up or being accused that we're not following through and doing the things we're supposed to do if there's a feature that's been identified that the town wants us to do that we simply cannot implement. So that's really our concern. You know, we're all in favor of providing the pedestrian access at whatever is an appropriate spot. We wouldn't want it to have a recommendation that's going to require us to do something that literally cannot be done.
Thank you.
Um,
And do you have your hand up?
I just had a quick question about that. Ken, do you know what the nature of the Brennan Woods people, what's wrong with having it where it's proposed initially?
At one of the meetings in front of the DRB, there was a woman who lives in Brennan Woods who expressed concern that somebody might walk across this path and walk up to the Cirque right of way and then walk into the backyard of somebody's property who lives in Brennan Woods. That literally was said. It seemed
that seems a little extreme to me.
Your
mean, there's
words,
a-
Gary, not mine.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. I mean, how wide is that buffer? It's like hundreds of feet, isn't it?
Something like that. And it's
Yeah,
all,
so
I
it's
mean,
not like it's directly right into the
Right.
backyard or anything.
right. So, but that was said in the meeting, and John Hemmelgarn, who some of you may know, is on the DRB, but is recusing himself because he's in a butter. And he has written a letter, you know, basically staking out an advocacy position on that. So, you know, that's something that occurred. And, you know, again, we want to do the right thing. So, but that's part of the backdrop.
Thank you.
If you wish to, WCC members, you can make a comment specifically about that path. If you agree with the location shown on the plan, or you want to make a statement saying you don't think the alternative location is a good location for it, you know, that's up to you.
I guess I would favor a comment similar to that we think, at least personally, I agree with it. It's a good location where it's currently marked, and to avoid putting it near a wetland if possible, especially since, you know, it's not like that's, you know, 20 feet from the yard of this woman. It's like hundreds of feet away, and there's, you know, things in between. I think it might matter how we direct that path once it gets built, and where people can go from it.
Yeah, I agree with Gary.
I'm
It's
in agreement,
important.
Laura, that the proposed location seems to be logical in terms of the layout of the development, in addition to avoiding wetlands.
Mhm. It's important to have access also. I mean, otherwise, you're gonna have people finding their own ways over to what could become a linear park.
Mhm. Do you want that added as a recommendation? Or a finding,
Yeah,
or
we could recommend that the pedestrian access to the VTrans circ right of way remain as proposed
Mhm.
after reviewing a butter input.
I guess we could also recommend that any change in that should not impact wetland or wetland buffers. I suppose you could say something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea, because that's why it was, yeah, where it is in the first place. So that it's not.
Do you have those combined, Melinda?
yes, pedestrian access to the circ should remain as proposed. Any change should not impact wetlands or wetland buffers. How does that sound?
Sounds great. Thank you.
Sounds good to me.
All right, let's go back to findings then. Okay, we can skip that. Let's see. Okay, so can we look at 7 on findings, and that the building lot 14 is partially within a wetland buffer, and there's probably a recommendation to that. Is that correct? Yeah, relocate lot 14 so that it is entirely outside the wetland buffer.
Can we look at where lot 14 is, Melinda?
So
The
that's
numbers
this,
were hard for me to see. Okay.
yeah, that's this one right here. And that's just consistent with chapter 29, or rather chapter 30 31 saying that the open space should contain all of the watershed protection buffers.
Mhm. So Ken, have you looked at this, Ken, and can that be moved?
You're on
Hey,
mute, Ken.
Ken, you're muted.
Thank you. A rookie mistake there. Could you repeat the question, please? I got distracted by something in the room where I am.
No, no worries. A finding and a recommendation is that lot 14 be moved because it's in the wetland buffer.
Well, the lot will be there. I think I guess I would rephrase the question, which is whether some portion of the lot would be in the buffer, because it's not the entire lot that's in the buffer. I would just restate our position, which is that there are ways to protect the buffer and still, have, essentially it's the building envelope, which is outside of the buffer. And there are some techniques that have been utilized in the past in the town and have been approved by the DRB to do that. Our proposal, as I stated earlier, would be utilizing large boulders to keep a property owner out of there from doing mowing. I mean, that's what we would like to be able to do.
Gary?
Well, I just want to, I mean, what's the issue with just moving? Is it because you want to have a certain lot size, Ken, or something? Because they can't do anything in that buffer.
No, well, yeah, they can't do anything. I mean, they can look at it.
Right, but if you reduce the size of it, they can still look at it. I mean, I'm just curious.
I understand that, but if you were to bring the property line back to the edge of what the buffer is, remember there's a setback that then the property owner would have. So what you would have left for a lot that would be usable in terms of where you could put a house, put a house or anything like that. So that's the issue is.
Okay, yeah, I was
So-
just curious of why not just change it, but it sounds like there's a reason.
Right, if you put the if the property line went to that sort of beige area, instead of going into the buffer, there would be a setback within that from that property line. And so what you would have left would essentially be a lot that, it would be very, very difficult to do anything with. So that's really is the issue.
Melinda, it seems like that's something that the DRB might be sensitive to, but from our perspective, the recommendation should stand that the entire lot should be outside of the buffer.
Okay, that's noted.
But Gary and Laura, do you agree?
I'm not sure because I understand what Ken's saying. But I understand from a conservation point of view that should stand. And the reason I was thinking that should stand is because if you're going to build something there right up to the edge of the buffer is somehow going to be impacted, I would think.
Yeah, it just increases the likelihood of impact to the buffer either during construction or during occupancy. The setback is a challenge. I understand that, Ken, but it also is an added protection for the buffer. If there's some setback beyond the edge of the buffer, then somebody can move around the outside of their structure without being in the buffer. So it adds a little bit of extra protection.
Gary, do you agree?
Yeah, I guess my opinion is if you can't fit a lot in there, having the lot outside the buffer, then maybe we shouldn't have a lot there. I mean, that's my feeling if we can't do that. But basically, I agree with what Reed said.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I mean, the DRB may be more sensitive
Yeah.
to, they can make that trade-off, but our recommendation is that it not be in a buffer.
Okay, yeah, I agree, Reed. All right, Ken, do you have anything further on that?
No, I think I've covered, our view of it. So,
Okay, thanks. Melinda, can we go back to the findings and recommendations? Okay, so on to recommendations, it looks like okay, we already covered number one. Number two, the impacts to the watershed protection buffer must be minimized by shifting or relocating residential building 32 at least 20 feet away from the stream buffer. And this is because, people like to have space around their units. And we thought that building 32 looked like it was pretty close to the buffer. Let's see.
right. So I guess I would just, as a way of restating and emphasize that, so those are units where people are not going to be buying individual lots. There's going to be no expectation that they're going to be doing any yard work. And it's not going to be landscaped as a lawn type area. So,
If,
Well,
yeah.
If I may, Laura.
No, go ahead, Reed.
Yeah, so I own a unit in a planned unit development, and we've got some units that are right up against buffer areas. And what I see happening is that from a structure maintenance perspective, that you never want unmanicured areas to be up against the house. You don't want tall grass, shrubs, anything like that to be so close to the structure. And so what ends up happening is a strip is mowed around the edge or weed whacked around the edge of the structure. So that's the concern from my point of view, is folks just trying to clear back from the foundation or back from the edge of the unit for good reason, to make sure that things aren't rubbing up against or holding moisture against the side of the building. But that's my concern there, Laura.
Thanks, Reed.
I agree with Reed.
Yeah, Ken.
I mean, because they're literally touching. I mean, if you had boulders there, they'd be leaning against the house.
Yeah, I was gonna say, do you know how many feet from the buffer the edge of the house is, Ken?
I don't know. It's not touching it as I read the plan.
That sure looks like it.
We may be able to adjust some of the spacing there to pull it back a little bit. There's we've had some discussions that some of that may be changeable at some point later on. But those units in there are also not part of this phase one for the permit. So I just sort of would emphasize that. So you're looking at an overall plan for the entire project, but this permit, this discretionary permit, is only covering phase one, right? Phase one covers the 60 units, 60 dwelling unit equivalents of for housing that received growth management allocation. So we don't have allocation for all the units in the project yet. So the way the Williston process works, you got to go through pre-app, you got to go through growth management, get allocation, and then you come in for your discretionary permit to get a permit to build the units. You have to do that within a year to build the units that you've got allocation for. So those units there on the east side, we can take a look and see if we can make some changes in there, but I would just sort of emphasize that those are not as part of the permits that part of the units that are within this permit application. So, but we'll, you know, we can try to take a look at that and see if we can perhaps make some changes that might be more acceptable to the commission going forward.
Yeah, so we, the buffer line is on purpose a little thicker than a typical line would be, mostly so it stands out on the plan. So that unit is approximately 2 feet off the buffer. And I think we're okay shifting the unit a little bit in order to maintain a distance from the buffer that we can construct and maintain the unit. You know, exactly what that is, you know, maybe it's 5 feet. We just feel that the 20 feet and the recommendation is well beyond what, you know, is feasible for constructability and maintenance purposes.
Laura, I agree with Ken about the phase development. What I'm thinking about is if you're going to build the road as part of phase 1, then your setback is basically set at that point for the front of that unit. So you really are deciding on the location. Really, you could only move it north and south to adjust it from what I can see on the plan that's on the screen now. And so I think it should be in the recommendations, but I'm glad to hear that it's at least not actually touching the buffer, so that maintenance could be done around the exterior of the building without going into the buffer.
So Reed, what do you feel about the 20 feet? That is not a number that's in the bylaw. That's just something that the commission thought was reasonable for space around a unit.
Yeah, I think I would be in favor of not using recommending a specific number of feet where it's not coming from the bylaw, but rather say that a reasonable amount of space should be provided between the edge of the buffer and the structure to allow for construction and maintenance that doesn't impact the buffer.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, and that's perfectly fine with us.
Okay, that sounds great. Melinda, do you have that?
Okay, so let me think. Impacts to the watershed protection buffer must be minimized by shifting or relocating the residential building number 32 away from just cross out at least 20 feet. Just put
Yeah, away
from
from the stream buffer to allow for construction and maintenance without impacts, something
Okay.
like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, basically you should be able to mow a strip around the unit on the backside to
Yep,
keep
understood.
stuff or weed whack stuff away from the building, because that's just causes, right? I mean, we're trying to minimize the friction between people and the natural environment around their home. And they should absolutely, you know, the association should absolutely be able to protect the structure from damage. And that just means we have to place it in a location where that can take place.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll just add one thing that I think we've noticed too. Even though a management company may do the maintenance, we've seen numerous times where people grab their own weed whacker and start weed whacking into wetlands and areas they're not supposed to. So that doesn't mean that nobody will encroach in a wetland.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's why the boulders are important. Which is number 4 as well. And so Ken, I think you said that you would rather use boulders than fencing.
Well, I think it's they're the most effective. A big rock that nobody can move. You know, there can be weathering that takes place on a rock, but it's probably not something that would be
Not on our time scale.
Not in our lifetime, right? Certainly not in mine.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. So if everyone's okay with number 4 then, which is that we have a watershed protection buffer on the ground, then let's see, 5. So Ken, are you okay with informational signage, especially near, for example, residential building number 32. So that people understand that that's a buffer that they can't encroach on.
We're fine with that. That could be a good public education tool as well.
Yeah.
That makes me, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Reed.
Laura, it reminds me, we were mentioning earlier, we were adding a recommendation about the pedestrian access to the circ right of way. And it does make me wonder whether it's called for to have some sort of signage at the edge of the property when you're headed on to the V-Trans property. Just wondering out loud if it's called for to have something there so that folks understand you're leaving this property and headed on to V-Trans property.
Yeah. That proposed trail is going to be like a sidewalk, Ken, is that correct? So it
Yes.
will end.
Yeah, my response to Reed would be, maybe some things have changed since I retired a few years ago, but I'm not aware of any signage like that, because there are all kinds of trails in Williston where you
Right.
go from one property to another. I'm not aware of any signage where it says, okay, you're leaving this property and you're now entering another property. So
Yeah, typically the signage is on the receiving property, letting them know you're entering private property.
right.
If they want that to be there. I'm just wondering out loud, it's not,
Mhm.
whether that would help address concerns of other abutting landowners that residents are aware when they cross that. Perhaps it's something that Brennan Woods could consider posting the edge of their property if they wanted folks to understand that they shouldn't cross onto private property on the far side.
It seems reasonable to us.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it will actually, feel like you've crossed over probably, because if a sidewalk ends and suddenly you're in this different unmanicured or whatever place.
I believe you actually have to walk up a slope, because I think that's all raised up. At least whenever I've driven through Brennan Woods and I've looked over to my right at where the circ right of way is, it seems like it's raised. It's not at the same grade as the yards. Maybe
Interesting.
I'm remembering it incorrectly, but
Mhm.
Yeah, and I think it's important to maintain that, the little spur there is for future use of that circ right away. If it comes to a point where the town of Williston can work something out with the state. But as of today, that's not to provide access to the circ right away. It's for future connection, should trails be built in the future. So, I think signage would help the Brennan Woods folks, and maybe you could put something on like look both ways, circ highway or something.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah. That's funny. Thanks for entertaining the idea.
Yeah.
Thank you, Reed. Yeah, maybe if there is a park there sometime, yeah, that we can keep that in mind. Okay, so let's see, now we're on number 6.
Yeah, 6 and 7 are both about buffer protection.
And as Chris Senesac knows, there can definitely be an impact to the buffer from people who are afraid of hazard trees falling on their homes. And we've seen this quite a bit in certain developments.
Very true.
So is everyone okay with number 6 and number 7?
Yeah.
All right.
Species.
All right, does anyone have any further comment?
I do. Well, I guess this has probably been addressed, but in the minutes, we had posed a couple of issues that we found last time. The one is that the wetland report says that the wetlands depicted are a sketch plan, not a delineation. Is that been resolved? The question was, has a delineation been conducted and is it accurately depicted in the plan?
That's right. Yeah.
Yes, the wetland delineation has been
Okay.
done. Fitzgerald Environmental did our wetland delineation. It was verified by the state of Vermont, and a classification report has been submitted with the date that it was accepted, and the wetlands are showed on the overall plan and the various site plans and their classifications.
Great. Thanks, Brad.
Yeah.
I think somewhere in what we saw before, it says this was a sketch plan. And so we just
Yeah.
questioned that.
I think the confusion was the classification report has sketches of the wetlands within it, but that's mostly for pictorial purposes. The surveyed locations of the flags are on our plan.
Great, thank you.
You're
Yeah,
welcome.
thank you. Okay, anything further? Do I hear a motion to approve the recommendations as amended?
I would move, but with only 3 of us, we won't be able to
Oh.
actually approve anything. So I think,
That's true.
is that right, Melinda? Basically, you'll take the notes from our discussion and provide them to the DRB.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, thank you, Melinda. Thanks
Mhm.
for reminding me about that.
It's tricky.
Yeah.
And we thought we'd have Kim, so.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, well, thank you, everyone. Thanks, Brian. Thanks, Chris. Thank you, Ken.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Good to see you guys.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
You too.
Let's see.
All right, so
Uh,
now we can look at the Willard 2-lot subdivision on Nob Hill Road.
Okay. So Ian or Malcolm, do you want to give us an overview of your project?
Malcolm, are you there, Malcolm? Huh, oh, I guess he is. Malcolm read your report and it prompted a lot of questions, and he's thinking he might want to reorganize his submission. So he's thinking we'd like to continue this and give you a different application to consider.
Yeah, you can certainly do that. Or if you would like to ask some questions today, that's we encourage you to do that if that would help.
Yeah, there's things he's considering that really are outside of your process, and he's doing
Okay.
this sort of for state planning purposes, and it is getting quite complicated.
Okay.
Which so from that point of view, we'd rather just continue it.
Okay. Do you know when you would like to continue it to, or just kind of
About a month.
about a month? Okay.
So
Sounds
if
good.
that works for you guys.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Just a second. Malcolm's saying he can't speak. Oh,
Oh,
you just need to
hold on.
unmute somehow.
Yeah.
Can you unmute Malcolm? Oh, there you go.
Oh, there you go.
Okay.
Hi, Malcolm.
Good morning. I'm a novice at this sort of thing. I've been listening to you, but didn't know how to get in. But anyway, yes, as Ian said, this is kind of a state planning, and there's been some questions raised that I need time to investigate. So if I can ask for a continuance, that would be appreciated.
Yeah, that's fine.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you very much.
And good luck with
Mhm.
all that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Sorry you had to wait through the last, if I had known you'd only be asking for a continuance, we could have switched you around.
Yeah.
That's all right. It was interesting to listen to what was going on and things.
It gives you an idea of the types of things that we're looking for when we're reviewing
Right.
applications. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
hopefully this will be a little simpler than a
I
big
think so.
subdivision with wetlands and things like that. So I'll look forward to seeing you next month or sometime in the future.
Okay, thank you, Malcolm.
Sounds
Thank you. Have
good.
a good day.
Thank you.
Yep.
Get a
Thank
little
you.
bit of your morning back.
All right.
All right, let's talk about the story maps. I was able to look at about half of them before the meeting, and
Yeah.
some of them are really, really interesting. I love that first one on
Mhm.
for 2 weeks to see all that wildlife in those locations. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, I thought that was really neat. I thought that, well, I got some feedback from Matt, especially who I shared this with.
Hey, thanks for being there.
Hey,
Hold on,
hey,
I'm
Malcolm,
gonna mute him.
just so you know,
I'm just
Malcolm, you're
gonna
still
mute.
on. There you go.
Anyway, he just said it was, kind of going through them. It was just like this big sort of downloading of information that, just about stuff that he had no idea like was going on. And so I thought from that perspective is really cool. And I think Matt suggested putting it out on a Planner's Corner post. And, I would agree. I think that would be a really great piece of outreach for just to kind of provide some information as to the different things that are going on and conservation in the town right now. And, I think that, particularly this first one I thought was really great. And I think he did really good work in both selecting the sites and in, the camera placement and, sort of explaining the issue and everything. And just the presentation I thought was really outstanding. So
Yeah, I agree. That first one was really fantastic.
yeah, and I also really liked this one too, where the person went around and interviewed some different farmers. I thought
Yeah,
that
I'm
was
really excited to take a look at that one. There's just so much here. I mean, you could almost do
Yeah.
like a Planner's Corner section to highlight one of these story maps, each Planner's Corner, and say, this month we're highlighting the Williston Trails assessment, or this month we're highlighting, the interviews with landowners. Yep.
Yeah. Did any of you have any questions on any of these or anything come up for you in reviewing them?
When are they going to have another semester of students who want to do project? I mean, we have so much.
Yeah. We may be able to work with another field naturalist program. On the other hand, I am continuing to work with the undergraduate NR 206 class, and they're kind of wrapping up their work. They're going to give me a final presentation on May 5th. And then I think the meeting after, I was thinking about presenting their work to you or just providing you with their work. But they've been working on creating a couple of different surveys related to expanding uses in the ARZD to support working farms. And they've been working really hard on that. They've got some good ideas for just providing more information to working landowners about their options and the support that's available out there for agritourism type enterprises. And so yeah, I think it's been good for them. I think we'll see some good things out of it as well. But yeah.
Yeah.
I just want to remind you guys that Walter's final class presentation, I think is it the 9th? It's a Monday, the second Monday, May 9th.
May 9th. Mhm.
Yeah. So that might, if you have time to go to that, it might be interesting.
And that's at Laura's farm.
I believe so.
Yeah. Laura
Right.
Handy's farm on South Road.
All right.
Yeah. Okay, so Um,
Okay, so thanks, Melinda. Yeah, for the Green Up Day Town Fair, were you still going to send out a sign up sheet?
Yeah, let me do that. I will do that right away. Or post one on Google, on a Google site so that people can sign up for slots.
Yeah,
But
the
it
Green
should
Up Day
be,
Town Fair sounds like I only just recently heard about it because I missed the last meeting. But I saw the email from Emily, and it just sounds like a really great opportunity when a lot of people are mobilizing in the town to interface with them and
yeah,
interact with them.
yeah, I think it'll be really good. And I think what we can do is I will have a few trail maps, but I'll also try to create a poster that I can print out with some QR codes to some various pieces of information so that people can just access it.
Yeah, like for instance, all those story maps we just looked at.
Yeah,
We could create a QR code that takes them to read the story maps.
yep, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
I like that. But yeah, I think it's shaping up to be a good day, so that's good. I just wanted to remind you also of the Champlain Valley Conservation Partnership meeting that's coming up on May 25th, and conservation organizations, including the land trust, and I think some other local conservation land trusts are going to be coming to that meeting, and it's just going to be sort of a round table of conservation organizations and sharing information. So I think it would be really great if anybody could attend. Anyone who wants to can attend, because I know that's something that you had expressed interest in kind of networking with those organizations. So
Yeah.
that's going to be 1:30 to 3, I believe, on May 25th. So if you're able to.
Or is that virtual or in
person.
person?
It's virtual.
Mhm.
And I can send out a meeting link to that when I get it.
Okay. I happen to know that I have a HOA board meeting that afternoon at 3, so I don't think I'm going to be able to do that, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know Alex personally invited me to that, Melinda, and I would like to go. That day is my anniversary, so I have to. Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah. Okay. We'll just see how that day goes.
Okay. Yeah. Let's see what else. Oh yeah, and as Eric let you know, I'm going to be transitioning into a new role in the planning department as the energy and community development coordinator. And it's been great to work with you all for the last several years, and I've really enjoyed the work that I've been doing with you all. And I will definitely miss it. But moving on,
you won't be far away.
I won't be far away, and I'll be working with Matt to kind of ensure a smooth transition and to recruit and hire the next person who comes in, and the Conservation Commission will also participate in an interview with that person. So think about who would, I guess, who would like to participate. And I'll send out an email when we have an interview coming up. I'll send out an email to everybody, and then you can decide who wants to participate in that interview process.
Okay,
I think
thank you.
maybe two of you could. I wouldn't want to have the entire commission there, but maybe up to 2 people from the commission would be great.
We don't bite, Melinda.
No, I know.
But we are
Um,
overwhelming.
No. And then also another positive, another exciting piece of news is that the Allenbrook Boardwalk is complete, the restoration, and Timber and Stone, I think they did a great job, and yeah, it looks great. It's well built and sturdy, and I think it will last for a long time. So,
What type of wood was used on the sides, Melinda? I know that the black locust was used for the treads, but was it?
yeah, the railings are also black locust. The rail posts are pressure treated.
Okay. Yeah, I was curious about that. I went down and checked it out. It looks beautiful.
Yeah.
It is
Yeah,
beautiful. I
I'm
saw
excited
that.
to see how it weathers. I know it's gonna change as it weathers.
Yeah, it's probably going to turn, like, based on what I've seen on another project they did in Burlington, it's going to weather to be gray, kind of gray. So, yeah.
Sorry, Laura, I cut you off.
Oh, no, that's okay, Reed. I just wanted to thank Melinda for getting that going. And I remember thinking about how expensive it was, but I can see why. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's so heavily used. I mean, there's
Oh,
what,
right.
1, 2, 3, maybe 4 communities that all have access points to the Allenbrook Nature Trail.
Mhm.
And then and then you add to that all the people who are just walking on the rec path and want to go for a nature walk. I know we do. We don't have a reason to necessarily traverse through that area, but we go out there just to walk in the
Mhm.
woods and look at the brook. So it's a really
Yeah.
valuable resource for us.
Yeah, thank you.
Mhm. So
And the
that's
sign's
all.
back up, Melinda. That's
What's that? And
the sign is back up after a few months.
oh yeah, right.
Yeah.
I got them to put that back up. So hopefully it won't be vandalized.
Yeah, that was so rough.
Yeah.
Who
Um,
does that? Who tears down an informational sign?
I think, at the time, I know Ann mentioned this to me, there was some stunt going around on TikTok, like it was a challenge almost, like steal some stuff
Right.
from a school or whatever. And I don't know, it's kind of
Positive peer pressure, right?
yeah. Anyway, so that's all I have.
Mhm. Does anyone have anything else? Any other business? I just wanted to mention one thing because I know we have talked about this. I got some tree mail from the now I can't remember what the group is, the Urban
Community
Vermont
forestry, yeah.
Community Forestry, yeah. And they had tree warden school for newbies and veterans. So I just forwarded that on to Bruce Hoare and said, just in case you're interested. And he mentioned that he'd already gone to tree warden school. So I thought that was interesting, and I thought you should know that. That he has, been doing the things and learning the things that he needs to know for being the tree warden in the town. So I just thought you should know that.
I know Chapin has been doing some advocacy to consider having a town arborist who advises the tree warden and helps create plans for maintenance of town trees. Somebody who comes from a tree background, not necessarily from a public works background, and learned to do tree maintenance, who can create plans for specific areas, like, hey, when it comes to the trees along the rec path, here's what needs to be done and when it should be done. And when it comes to the trees around the village, the library, the town hall, etc., here's what the state of that is and when it should be worked and how it should be worked. So I think that is an interesting concept, and I've been thinking about it as well. So just something to be aware of.
Yeah, and just so you know, I think Melinda, you told me that Bruce also suggested that to Matt, that the town have an arborist.
Yeah, he did mention that. So it's on his radar as well. One thing related to that, but before I forget, Gary, do you know if Tony D'Amato has looked at the EAB plan, or if he's had a chance to do that, and if he would like to come and talk to us about it sometime?
Yeah, he did look at the plan. I can forward you his comments. I don't think they were too much, but he also agreed to help out with a new plan too. I didn't ask him about coming to visit us for some reason. Either I didn't know it or I forgot about that, but I'm sure he would at least come remotely, which is the way we meet anyway. So, because he does a lot of that. I can ask him today if I see him, but he was more than willing to review the existing plan and to have suggestions for a modified plan.
I would really like that if we could make it happen. Yeah.
Yeah. Can you forward his comments to us also?
Sure, I got to find him, but I will definitely.
No worries.
I mean, it's been a month or so since he did it. So
no worries.
If you like, I can reach out to him and ask if he would like to come to the next meeting to talk about that, or a future meeting. I mean, I guess it doesn't really.
Why don't I run the idea by him first, just to
okay,
see if
sure.
he'd be willing to do it, and then we can get into the details of when.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, thanks, Gary. All right, so I think if there's nothing else, we can adjourn the meeting early. So thank you, everyone, for coming.
Thank you. Finesse those plans for your anniversary, Laura.
Oh, I know.
You gotta start early.
Oh, gee whiz. Okay, bye everyone. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.